You know, my last research monograph was published 10 years ago. My last research paper was published 8 years ago. And my last keynote speech was given 3 years ago. So to rehash those things doesn't seem to be appropriate here. It's pretty much like warm up your last leftover dinner dish for your honored guests. That's not quite appropriate. On the other hand, I haven't been totally retired in the last 10 years. Many of you know that I do write a sort of column popularizing science on the ScienceNet platform, which enjoy quite a bit of popularity and so forth. But again, this is a technical conference. To talk about popularizing science and engineering doesn't seem to be the right thing to do. So, at the risk of sort of blowing my own horn, I choose this particular title to sort of looking back on my life of some 60 years in this field. And for several reasons. One is it's appropriate at my age to look back on what you have done. Second, so it may set some example for younger scholars in this audience. They can sort of privately say to themselves, if Larry Ho can do that, I can do it too. So give you some inspiration, incentive to look forward. And finally, there's a little bit of private reason. Not only, as David said, many of my academic family colleagues are former students are all here, but my personal family is my wife, children, grandchildren are in the audience. So this is one chance for them to find out what their old men do for a living in the last few years. So with that, let me see. Okay, my research education life. Well, I started living in the United States in 1950. For the first decade, basically, I worked my way through MIT, Harvard, and to earn some money, worked in the industry for 3 years. And then the next 40 years, basically, I stayed at Harvard, except for sabbatical and so forth. I did research and teaching. And since 2001 to date, I have a part-time job managing a center and at Tsinghua University, still keep on doing research. And finally, for the last 10 years, I've been a blogger on the ScienceNet platform, writing various things about explaining science and engineering. That's quite rewarding because I have each one of my weekly columns probably has 4,000 readers and from 48 different countries all over the world. So that's writing comments, good or bad, on what I say. So that's a very rewarding thing to do. So let me be a little bit more specific about the last 68 years of my life. Well, I lived in the United States since 1950 at age 16, alone without any friends or families. I had one job since finishing school in 1961 and stayed on at Harvard and taught for 40-some years without stop until retirement. I married one woman who's sitting back there. Since 1959, I'm still married to her. I bought and lived in one house in which I still live. And all my 3 children went to the same kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, and university. And in my daily living, I had one attorney, one accountant, and one insurance agent. They have either passed on, retired. Now I work with their son in the business. So you might say this is very boring and not typical. I mean, an American, not in the usual sense of disloyal to the United States, but just not typically American. It's just kind of very boring. But I did live the American dream. I started out with almost nothing except education, and now enjoy all the fruits of my life. So I very much feel I did live the American dream. Now, here I start recalling some of the memorable events of my life, the first or the craziest, best, or whatever in my life. One, I applied to MIT right here, 1949, MIT, age 15. Everybody thought I was crazy. Remember, 1949, the political condition, everything. I myself thought I was crazy, but they admitted me, so I went. And by the way, don't worry about copying these addresses. If you email me, I'll send you all the things, so don't bother. I just want to know there are more to be said on this. And last year, National Public Radio in the US talked about the immigrant's experience in a series of short interview program called Your First Day in the United States. So I had a contribution about First Day in the United States. I think as an immigrant, you all have some special feeling to recall. And I offer, I'm sure you all know Common. And when he received the equivalent of the Nobel Prize in Engineering, the so-called Draper Prize in 2008, in his acceptance speech, he acknowledged two people. One, first is his mentor and teacher, Solomon Lefschetz, the great differential equation theorist. Second is actually me, because he accepted the fact that I offered the simplest explanation of the greatest contribution of his career, the common filter. I can give a 2-hour lecture on common filter, a 10-minute lecture, and a 1-sentence explanation of what common filter is all about. And he, in fact, acknowledged this in his acceptance speech. Last 50 years, I work on the subject of ordinal optimization, which I say a little bit. And I have on my website, that's the easiest demonstration to convince people what it is all about. 56 years ago, the only paper I co-wrote was Common. And to this day, I still get requests for reprints. Of course, people don't realize that long ago, there's no PC, no word processing, and this was a conference paper, in fact, in a little-known conference which no longer exists. So, but people still write to me for reprints, so for which I don't have myself. But I guess this is one paper that stood the test of time for altogether 56 years. And I think I hold the record. The IFAC, I was invited 3 times to give plenary lectures at IFAC from 81, 1990, and 1999. So basically, the 40 years of recent teaching, the first, of course, is the subject, the book that David mentioned about, which had a citation of over 10,000 citations. Interesting things on this. My senior author, Professor Bryson, when we started writing this, he was negotiating the contract for this. And he thought he did a very smart thing. He said, I don't want percentages. I want $1 per author, per book sold. Because that time, this book, when it first came out, sold for $15 US. And he thought he did a very good deal. Now, the books cost over $100 US. He and I still only get $1 per book. The publisher really made out of this, because every year it still sells 200 or 300 copies a year without a second edition or revision. But that's a little bit of a trivia. Well, then the next decade, I did basically try to extend control theory to game theoretical multiplayer situation. This diagram is a geometrical explanation of various concepts of game theory, whether it's Nash equilibrium, stackable solution dilemma, negotiation set, so as such. In one simple geometrical diagram, everybody can understand. And that's been used many times, not only by myself, but by others to talk about. And basically, my own work in this area is extending these concepts, which are established by von Neumann and others, into the differential equation realm. The differential games have this, can employ the same concept, so forth. So that's my second stage of my work. The third is what's called the perturbation analysis, which Professor Xiren Chao, and he's in fact more expert on this than myself. This is a piece of work in developed by people in control for new ways of looking at operation research problems. And interesting historical note is this: when it first came out, of course, the first paper was published in the Control Journal. Then I thought, gee, we have did this interesting thing. We have to show it to the operation research community. And of course, typically this, you are an outsider, you tell the field, I've done something useful to your field. The first reaction is, it can't be. We know about this field, it must be wrong. Then, so the editor immediately rejected our paper, and in fact, wrote to the editor of the Control magazine, says, you know, you published something that's wrong that Xiren and I have done. And in fact, another person wrote to the National Science Foundation in the US, says, you're wasting taxpayers' money for supporting our work in this. Now, after many battles, they finally grudgingly accept the fact that this is indeed a breakthrough. And when the Informed Society, the Society for Operating Research and Management Science, established the first class of honorary membership called Inform Fellows, they inducted me as one of the founding members. So they finally acknowledged this thing from outside. And lastly, the last 14 years, I've been basically working with colleagues Tsinghua so forth on unknown observations, which is based on some rather basic ideas. And here's an Excel example which I use many times. It's on my website, which explains the essence of unknown observation in a very simple and convincing manner. So, in summary, that's about it. The first decade, I basically work on optimal control. Second decade is on games and multiplayer control. And third decade, as I mentioned, the perturbation analysis and the discrete event systems. And last decade on observation, as well as blogging the science net. So many thanks for a wonderful ride, and I would say getting there is all the fun. Thank you very much.
Just stand up, say loudly.
Okay. Thanks, Professor Herb. Thanks for your inspiring speech. I'm a PhD student in CUHK, and my major is system and control, especially the output regulation theory. I have learned a lot from your inspiring speech, and moreover, I have learned a lot from your blogs in Science Network of China. And I still remember one sentence, and my favorite part is your topics about how to do research. And I still remember one sentence that he said, go find a real-world problem that a group of people is eager to solve. So I still remember this sentence. But as a control theorist, we have little chance to know the real-world problems in engineering. So sometimes we just only focus on the mathematics. So my first question is that, how can we deal with this kind of difficulty? And this is my first question. My second question is that, nowadays, from your point of view, are there any real-world problems that a group of people is eager to solve nowadays? And that's my two questions. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. You obviously have read my various blog articles for the last 10 years, and also the book that came out of this thing, which answers your question in a lot more detail about how you should go about finding interesting problems to do, and how I myself benefited from a particular rule, which I'm explaining in detail in the book, about how to find interesting things to do. So I won't go into detail answering these things, except to say it doesn't really matter what topic you pick. 行行出状元, in every branch you can find precious things to do. So I wouldn't worry too much about picking the right problem. Now, also, I think that, I don't mean this as a criticism, among the Chinese students I have had to do research, they are extremely well trained in answering questions. But the Chinese education system do not have enough training for asking the right questions. And that's something, you know, if you come to the United States, you have a better chance to learn. Together with your, I view myself, the major contribution I can make to a student is help him or her to learn to ask the right question. Because if you ask the right question, half of the work is done. Even if you don't have the material, you can hire an expert in some branch of mathematics or learn yourself to do it. The greater payoff is in asking the right question. So that is a process. If you have the right advisor who can help you to train you to ask the right question.
Another question?
Yeah, don't be shy. Ask anything, embarrassing or otherwise. It's okay. Yes.
Can you use the microphone?
Hey, hi, Professor Lo. I'm Zhang Qingpeng from City University, a junior faculty member. Actually, I was motivated to do research because of your talk. So you gave a talk in Huazhong University of Science and Technology many years ago. Yeah,
I remember.
yeah. I was there as a freshman student, and I got very motivated and inspired. So just want to express my gratitude to also your books, the rap books and the follow-up books, and follow up the questions about finding the right question. Currently in the U.S., especially in the U.S., it's highly driven by funding, the grants. So how do we balance between the projects that can be funded and the projects that we think is important and interesting?
Good question. Again, as I like to say, it doesn't matter too much what subject matter you choose. Some matter hotter than the other, more current, so forth. But once you pick a topic that interests you and that you don't know too much about, the important is that's how I choose my consulting work. I always try to choose problems which I know very little about. Because this way, I go in there with a fresh mind. I myself will benefit by learning something new and also not fall into a trap like a solution looking for a problem to solve. It should be the other way around. Find a problem and try to solve it. And then in that process, you may invent new ideas, discover new things to do. So that's how I would say approach a problem. And some of these are written at a longer length in the book I mentioned of the blog articles I've written. So you are welcome to consult that.
Okay, thank you.
I see many younger women candidates here. I'd like to hear some opinion from them.
Women scientists, women engineers.
Yes, they face special problems that we don't. Yes.
Okay. My name is Bing, and I'm currently a social professor at the City University of Hong Kong. Oh, okay. Better?
Yes.
Okay, so actually I'm currently supervising 4 PhD students, and I noticed today you have a very rich academic family, and I wish that one day I can be, my students can be as successful, or we can have also a big academic family. So my question is about, can you share something about how to sort of work effectively with PhD students and how to nurture them to do some good research?
Yes. First of all, as a general answer, without getting to the gender difference and so forth, I would say working with PhD students is one of the great joys of research, because you're basically not particularly as a student teacher, but as colleagues. A student when I meet with them every week, when they come for some ideas, I push them very, very hard, trying to show them where they have missed, they have not thought through carefully. And after a while, they learn very quickly. They learn how to think through carefully and push back. And at that time, I said, okay, you're ready. You can still push back on my push you. So that's the thing. And another thing, I will consult one of my brilliant woman PhD student, Professor Lei Ranshi, who has a very successful career, managing both home life and research. You should talk to her about particular difficulties and ways she has resolved the difficulty that I myself, other male colleagues do not encounter. Yeah. Yes.
And I'm Jie, working with the Department of Industrial Engineering in Peking University, and who is the postdoc of Professor Le Yuanxi when I was doing my postdoc. And also she's the role model for me to how to, as you said, work-life balance. And also there, because we are in the School of Engineering, and we also want to know lots of the good questions from the real society. And I want to ask, so how we can balance the consulting and the publication during our career life?
Well, on your last question, which I myself should have faced, I look for what I call the triple win situation. 三赢, one is you solve the problem the industry has, not the problem you think they have. One, if you solve their problem, they win. Second, I always look for a problem which I know very little about, so I can learn something new and possibly start something. A new discipline or new subfield. And most of my good ideas come from consulting. So that's the second wing. The third wing, if you do it well, you publicize your university. University gets glorious. That's why in the US, every faculty member is allowed 1 day a week to go outside to do consulting, because university recognize this advantage. So I call it the win-win-win situation, looking for that kind of problem.
Well, let me add a note to that. In fact, the whole area of perturbation analysis, which Larry and his students started, he highlighted in his third decade, the whole area, the whole theory applications of perturbation analysis started, if I recall correctly, from your consulting project. To the, I think it's the automobile industry, right?
Yeah. Fiat.
This is talking about the classical problem, how you design the buffers in a serial line. So the question Larry and his industry partners were asking at that point was, what happens if you have one more buffer, if you have one less buffer space? What happens to the delay, inventory, production, throughput, everything? So starting from that question, this whole area about the perturbation analysis. Perturbation analysis, after all, is about seeking some kind of a sensitivity, some kind of a gradient estimation. So it is exactly from that project the whole theory came out. So this is really a perfect example. Somebody asked about, I think that's the first question, asked about how do you sort of get real-world problems to motivate your research. That's a perfect example.
Thank you.
At the back, that's Professor Ma in finance.
Okay, thank you very much. Although I'm a professor of finance, but I studied optimal control theory when I was an undergraduate student. I still enjoy my study control theory more than the study research now in the finance area. But then, because nature is totally different. One is studying nature, another is studying the human behavior. Now, my question is, I noticed you have 3 great children, but they are not all in academic world. You are great academic, achieve great academic achievements. But, and also we are facing this, my daughter just graduated as well, but she's also not studying PhD. Now, we have a student, PhD students from the business, finance studying. They don't want to go to academic world, most of them. They want to investment bank, whatever. But our job is to train our best PhD student to do the academic work, to continue our research, our dream. So how do we, my question, how do we motivate them to do academic work, especially from the business students. Thank you.
Well, that's a perennial question, of course. You decide whether you want an academic career, where quote-unquote fame is more important than profit, or you want a more business career and so forth. In each endeavor, you can achieve success. Or sometimes you can, for a while, you can do both. But you have to understand which customer are you serving. In industry or in finance and so forth, people care about the bottom line, the profit. They don't care how many papers you publish. It doesn't matter to them. I mean, maybe that's to you, but it doesn't. So you have to understand that. Again, in academia, people value peer opinion and so forth, not so much how much profit you make. Even though either the endeavor is worthwhile, but you have to decide for yourself which is more important for you and so forth. Certainly, financial engineering is a growing field. Many of my recent students, at least in the last 20-some years, several have gone into finance to great success, and so more power to them. So I think it's a matter of depending on your personal likes or dislikes or interests, fame or fortune or both, what you like to succeed. All I can say is I think the opportunities are fantastic.
So there's no way to motivate them.
Well, I don't think it's my role to motivate PhD students. They have to decide for themselves what is it they like. But I show sort of a little bit by examples how I was able to accomplish certain things, and maybe they will follow. Yes.
Thanks, Professor Hall. I'm a PhD graduate from Chinese University of Hong Kong. I'm a big fan of your blog on the ScienceNet.
Oh, good, thank you.
And I noticed that once you're asked to give just one piece of advice for a young man who wants to seek success, that is to get a good wife.
Or good partner. Yeah,
good partner.
Either way.
Oh, okay. So here's my questions that I want to know what the only advice that you want to give for young female students or the graduates.
Yeah, well, my answer was
the same.
Find a good partner for yourself. And so I think it's very, very important. Your partner deserves whatever success and failure that you in your career. I mean, I'm eternally grateful to have a wife whom I happily married for 58 years, and we still enjoy life together.
Yeah, we admire a lot. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Well, let's thank Professor Hall again for a very inspiring talk.